Just 6 minutes. That is the median amount of time that the average retail investor, people like you and I, will put into their research for decision making on whether to buy or sell a particular stock. That is unbelievably low, but I'm not surprised, I can tell you that. That's the subject of today's video, a research report from the National Bureau of Economic Research, which scoured through hundreds and thousands of people and their click history and all sorts of data points to come up with these figures. So we're going to deep dive into this today, the subject of today's video, and let's get into it. All right, so as I mentioned a minute ago, there is a shocking small amount of time that people put into making their decisions on what stocks to buy and when. I've got to be honest, I'm not massively surprised. I've spent around 20 years talking to clients who are making investment decisions, but also, friends, colleagues, in other words, many conversations, probably thousands over my time around this. And I have to say that most people will make their decision on whether to buy a stock or sell a stock purely based on price movements. It's just the way it is. Unfortunately, it's really nothing more than a form of gambling. And I think it's what puts off a lot of people from the market overall, because of course they have bad results and a bad experience and things don't go well, and therefore they leave the market entirely, which is a terrible thing. But let's get into it. I've run a table on this report. It's a very comprehensive report that they've done. As I mentioned, loads of data points. I've summarized it all for you. Let's get it up on the screen and have a look at this so we can get an idea what people are actually doing before they make their stock investments. And then at the end of the video, I'll go through a little bit more in terms of what you should do rather than just following these, what other people do themselves. All right, so have a look at this chart on the screen where I've summarized all the different categories of what individual investors will look at before they make their investment decision. And by the way, they tend to only do this within 24 hours of actually placing the trade, which is not surprising when you look at the median times here in that middle column, how little time is actually spent doing the research. Okay, so what are the categories that people look at before they make their decisions? Well, at the top, you can see price charts, and the median time is only 6 to 7 minutes. And this is the most common focus that people will look at. And as I said a moment ago, I've seen it all too often where people are really just making their decisions based on price movements. They're not focusing on the company themselves. In fact, in a lot of cases, I think they pick the company purely based on the name, how they get a gut feeling about that company, and they don't really answer the question that they should be answering before anything else. Is this a good company? Rather, they just look at the company name and then they pull out a price chart, see where it's moving, and then make a gut feel decision whether to buy or sell based on that. 6 to 7 minutes for price charts. Snapshot pages is next up, and that's a bit of a mix. With a snapshot page, you'll get a little bit of a chart and you'll get a tiny bit of, fundamental data like earnings and profits, but it's generally very high level stuff, not a deep dive at all. After that, investors will look at analyst opinions. So they'll have a quick look at the price charts, a snapshot, and then just see if they can get a quick summary of what the analysts are saying. And they'll only spend around 3 minutes on that if they use it at all. Other fundamental data, okay? And this is where we get into things like valuation ratios, financial data. 1 to 2 minutes is the median time if used at all. What about earnings? Earnings are some of the most important data points that come out on a company because earnings is actually what drives stock prices. Less than a minute is the median time spent, briefly checked, and it's not even deeply analyzed. It's just a quick look at what the earnings are. What about dividends, you say? Under 30 seconds is the median time, just a quick check, and it's often skipped as well. So dividends are not even really registering. And here we get into something that I think is actually very key as well. Risk statistics, things like beta and volatility. And as you can see there, it's almost completely ignored. And this is a real shame because when you make an investment in a stock, you need to factor in the risk associated with that particular company and the stock price. Is this a stock that is likely to cut in half as well as double? And if it were to do that, how would I react? You've got to get an understanding of how volatile the particular stock price can be, okay? But people don't even bother with the risk parameters. That's a real shame. What about things like insider and institutional information? Well, it's under a minute if used at all. And only around 25% of investors even look at this. If you're wondering what it is, obviously what insiders are doing, these are people who actually work at the company. They could be very high level. They receive stock as compensation or have built up stock in the company. And clearly, if you have a lot of insiders buying more or selling a lot of it, it could be an indicator that they feel the stock is overvalued or undervalued. Sometimes they can also be selling stock purely because they need the cash. You often see Jeff Bezos every couple of years place a couple of $1 million of sell orders on Amazon stock. And a lot of that is he's just using the money to fund his yachts and the lifestyle that he has at the moment. But it's a great piece of information that institutional or professional investors will look at all the time. What about news headlines? Yeah, they're looked at as well, but it's really only for a medium of little over 2 minutes. And it's just the general headlines. People just see that top headline, look at that, and factor that into their decision. They don't do a deep dive into the news. Okay? From there could be message boards. If they're used at all, it's under a minute. Very shallow engagement on that. Company websites, only a few seconds. Can you believe it? If you're thinking about investing your hard-earned money into a company, surely you would want to go spend some quality time on their website and particularly get into the investor relations page of their website where you can look at annual reports and other key bits of information. But no, it's not happening. People don't even bother with that. And then the last, you have a mix of all sorts of other data points where it is used for 10 minutes or less in total, that is. Okay, so what does all of this tell us? And frankly, what it tells us is a little bit sad, and that is that people just will not put the time in to do the right research that's needed for individual stock investments. Professional investors, professional money managers will spend hours upon hours upon hours poring over 10K reports for earnings, annual reports. They'll maybe even look at the last 10 years earnings releases and try and form an opinion on the valuation of this company. And most importantly, is this a great company or not? Because if it's not a great company, then you probably don't need to worry about the pricing or anything else. And of course, individual investors, people like you and I, are foregoing all of this work that's needed for obvious reasons. Everybody's pretty busy and therefore are going to have poor, if not catastrophic, results in their portfolios. So what should you do instead? If you've watched my channel and other videos, you know I'm a huge proponent of index fund or ETF investing, where you simply buy a fund that tracks the entire market. And by doing so, you will get the full market return for the ETF or the index fund that you purchase, and you don't have to do any of this work at all, and it frees you up to do other things. And the best part about it is you will get a return over the long term that's as good, if not better, than the professionals who are taking all this time to do this research. The data has showed this time and time again, that over a 10-20 year period, something like 90% of professional money managers fail to beat the benchmark like the S&P 500 themselves. So if I were you, I would just recommend that you just do index funds, ETFs, passive investing as it's known, and forget about doing individual stocks. However, if you really insist in doing your own decision making and picking your own stocks, you gotta put in more time than 6 to 7 minutes in total, and you cannot just be trading on the back of a stock price move only. It may be fun, it may be exhilarating, but guess what? It's really just a form of gambling. There's nothing wrong with that. It's entirely up to you, but I'm just telling you, if you want to have great investment results, taking a gambling price-based approach with 6 to 7 minutes only of research is not the way to get the great results. So that's the study, the National Bureau of Economic Research, pouring through hundreds of people's click data and decision making before they go ahead to make a stock purchase, and it's unbelievably low, 6 to 7 minutes for all of these people. If you like the video, then why not click on that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you do. Do you do more research, or is this about right for you, 6 to 7 minutes only, and then you click that buy or sell button? I'd love to hear from you, so let me know in the comments field. If you want to know more information on what I do and how I manage my portfolio because you're sick and tired of picking stocks and having it go wrong for you, no problem at all. I did a video on this, my one fund portfolio, put a link up to that right here. So click on that one. I'll see you over there. And as always, I wish you nothing but the best in your savings and investment journey.